Oh, periods, periods, periods.
And she ran into the bathroom after me.
But it was just so awkward and so terrible, and I thought I'd gotten out of it, but I didn't. Period blood.
But I think I have like a square-shaped vagina, and like
I felt like, oh my god.
this couldn't get much worse. So it got worse.
Hi, my name is Amy.
Diana.
My name is Lexi.
I'm Allishia.
Hi, I'm Amanda. My name is Sierra. Sorry. Hold on.
My name is Teresa.
I'm from Los Angeles.
From Culver City, California.
From Venezuela, South America. Los Angeles.
Bear Creek, North Carolina.
South Orange County.
College Station, Texas.
Teresa, how old are you?
I'm 34.
30 years old.
31.
28.
I'm 22. I am 20. Oh, does that... My age is 20? I'm 20. Let me do it again. I'm really bad with interviews, just a disclaimer.
I am 31.
So I got my period when I was 16.
So then you were 17 when you got your first period?
I was a late bloomer.
I was 12 when I got my first period. I was 10 years old when I got my first period.
I got my period, I believe, 11 or 12.
Got my period at 11 years old.
I have been menstruating since I can't math, since I was 14.
I then only had it for like 2 or 3 months, and then I was medicated. I had to go on birth control, and then I got it again when I was 28. So I've only really had it since I was 28.
It actually kind of snuck up on me getting my first period because I was spotting for months beforehand and I didn't know what it was. I was really embarrassed. I thought it was like skid marks or something, that these brown marks showing up in my underwear, and I had a drawer in my dresser that I would pull out and shove all the dirty underwear underneath that drawer, and somebody discovered it, that I had this secret pile of dirty underwear that I couldn't fess up to because I didn't know what it was or why my body was having this problem. But it was creepy and weird, and I didn't understand what it was.
When I got my first period, I knew what it was. I wasn't allowed to go to health class. So like I never got to go to sex ed or anything. Me and this Mormon girl were the only ones not allowed to because our parents wouldn't sign the paper. I was raised very conservative Christian.
Well, we used to have the like class about like our bodies, and it was up to like our parents to like sign the paper saying we could go or not. And being from a small town and having an ignorant mother, like, she never signed it, so I didn't know what the hell was going on. And she didn't tell me shit, so... Can I say shit? Okay. And she didn't tell me anything, so I was just like, oh, cool. I knew this was gonna happen. I didn't know anything about it, but there it was.
I didn't get to have, like, the education that everybody else got. So I knew, probably just because I had an older sister and a mom and whatever, so it was like something I kind of knew about, but by no means did I understand it was coming from my uterus, and that it was because my body was punishing me for not like being pregnant that month and like expelling, you know, those eggs, etc.
I did know what it was when it arrived. I didn't know as much about it as I should have at that point, but I was like, oh, my period, it's here. The first time that I actually had my period, though, I had no idea what was happening. I was running around in white shorts with the boy next door, and all of a sudden my mom called me into the bathroom and sent him home, and I didn't know what I had done wrong. But then she sat me down and explained that I had been spotted.
Valentine's Day, white pants, red shirt, because I was coordinating for the holiday, obviously. And then that's when I got it. And I was like the first one of my friends to get it. But then I was like, oh my God, I'm so cool. And just got my period. So I remember like these two girls went with me to the nurse's office to like go get a pad, and then we went to the bathroom, and the whole time I'm in there like I'm making a huge deal about it. I'm like, oh my God, it's so much blood. And they're like, okay.
When I had my first period, I was showering in the guest bathroom of my parents' house, but all of my like normal shower stuff was in my bathroom downstairs. I have no idea why I did that. So I was like half showered in a towel running down the stairs, which were carpeted with cream carpeting. So I went into the bathroom, grabbed all my stuff, and then went back up the stairs and noticed a trail, if you will, of period blood.
I was traveling with my mom and my sister, so we were outside of the country, and we were staying in my mom's friend's house. So I was sleeping, I woke up, I got it, I told my mom, and we went straight to the restroom. She was like totally fine, she was ready. She helped me and everything, but I left some spots on the sofa. Thank God my mom was covering for me. Well, that's what I thought. Like, I don't know. Everyone reacted like nothing happened. Thank God. But I don't know. I was so nervous about it.
My first period was my worst period. And although I had been going to the doctors and my mother was desperately trying to figure out why I hadn't started, a lot of the explanation was she's very athletic. Typically, when they're very athletic young age, it can kind of push off, you know, the starting of their period. So I hear this and I'm not too terribly alarmed. I'm like, whatever, I've got other things to worry about. Softballs to throw, bats to swing. And when I finally got it, it was very heavy. And I didn't know any difference, so I didn't think too much of it. But it didn't stop being really heavy for at least a week. And I remember I would go through, I think when it was at its worst constantly was when I would go through 2 to 3 major super tampons in an hour and a half. I would completely soak them up and then have to, I would just start bleeding through everything. Within 20 minutes, one of them, so I would constantly be having to change. And then 7 days came, 8 days came, 9 days came, weeks went, and it was just constant, to the point where everybody was alarmed. It was such a problem. I wasn't cramping, so it wasn't like I was having the menstrual things. I just literally could not stop bleeding. And I ended up bleeding my first period for over 6 weeks straight. Of course, now that I look back on it, had that been my daughter, oh my goodness, I would have just been livid. Like, beside myself, not knowing what to do, as was my mother. So I went to quite a few gynecologists when I was around 14, 15. And I've seen so many people prod on my vagina that could not understand why I would not stop bleeding, to the point where my mother was begging for a Depo-Provera shot, which is a very, very highly concentrated shot that nobody my age should have received. It was just to the point where I remember I went to one of the gynecologists, because you're not supposed to go to the gynecologist when you're on your period, because they can't examine you, they can't really do anything. However, that was not my case. So I remember going there and he instructed me, you need to take your tampon out before, because he asked me, are you on your period? I said, well, yeah, that's why I'm here. He's like, okay, great, you need to take your tampon out. I was like, I don't think that's a very good idea. And he's like, oh, well, the doctor has to examine you. Okay. Cue me just like the River Nile flowing all over. And when he walked in and he, took his little sheet off and he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, yeah, hey, that's why I'm here. This isn't the best thing. Of course, my mother was just, very distraught about it. And I think it was along about the 6th doctor, or 4th or 5th or 6th doctor, one of those in there. It was quite a few we went through, because nobody would administer a Depo-Provera shot to somebody so young. And when it got to the point where I'd been bleeding for 6 weeks, I think that she pulled a mom card and said, if you do not give this shot, like, I'm going to raise absolute hell. I think she was at her wit's end by that point. I was incredibly sick. Looking back on it now, I lost a ton of weight. I was become chronic anemic by that point. I was just a little bitty tiny thing. Couldn't really even function most days, honestly. And it was just so much. I remember so much and constant. And now that I understand what it means when you have your period and you get tired, now I understand how badly tired I was then, and just overexerted and all of these things. So she eventually, she got a doctor to reluctantly agree to give me the shot, and it stopped for a minute, for just a little bit. I don't mean a minute like an actual minute. I mean, like, it stopped for a few weeks, and then proceeded in onslaught of having irregular periods for about the next 5 years.
So when I realized what had happened, I wasn't freaked out or anything. I have a twin sister who got her period when she was 13, so I had 3 years of just knowing exactly what was going on. The first thing I thought was like, oh, fuck, I'm in huge trouble, because I had stained, like, I'd managed to get blood on every single stair. Like, it was just, like, straight down. So I had to figure out how to, like, clean that up pretty quickly so my parents wouldn't murder me. And then I just remember thinking, like, crap, like, now my mom's gonna be all like, oh my god, you're a woman, and, like, all that stuff, because I was a tomboy, like, a crazy tomboy, and I think I, like, ran away from, like, all of this, like, feminine stuff, and so I think I willed my period not to happen until I was 16, and then I just, like, couldn't, like, defy nature anymore. So yeah, when it happened, I was like, shit, now I'm gonna get boobs and, like, be a girl, damn it. But yeah,
I want to say it was the morning. I woke up, had my period. It must have been a weekend.
And then what did you do? Did you go find your mom? Did you just what did you do?
I told her. And she didn't, like, have any, like, she didn't do anything, like, she didn't make me feel bad about it, but, like, she was just like, okay, this is it. This is a thing. This is what we're doing. Yeah, it was like, okay, well, how do I even put it? It wasn't, like, an exciting thing, and it wasn't a sad thing. It was just like, okay, well, we were expecting this. Like, let's handle this situation.
So when I got it, for the first time ever, I was sitting in math class, which I already hate math, so it was, like, an unfortunate time to get it. But I was sitting in math class, and it sucked because a cute guy sat in front of me. And I have really bad allergies, and I sneezed, and, like, blood just came out, and I instantly knew what it was. I don't know how I knew, but I was just like, I think I just got my first period ever. And I didn't want to stand up because I knew it was probably everywhere. I never had it before, so I didn't know, like, how much actually came out, and I didn't know if my body was, like, exaggerating what it felt. And the bell rang, and I just kind of sat there. And I didn't want to get up, and the guy that sat in front of me that was really cute, he was like, are you gonna stay here? And I was like, yeah. And I legitimately didn't know what to do, and I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I can't go. And then it was like, it was lunch, so, like, the teacher left, but the classroom was open, so I didn't have any, like, where else to go. And I, like, texted my friend, and she's like, okay, I have a flannel, like, it's okay. So then I, like, tied a flannel around my waist, but, like, when I got up, there was blood, like, on the seat I was in. And I was, like, traumatized. Like, it was terrible because it was, like, I wasn't used to that happening. Then I went to the bathroom, and my friend was really cool. She, like, tried to, like, ease me through it because she was an early bloomer. So she had, like, known what to do, and, like, it's okay. And then I was just so distraught, and I, like, called my mom to come get me. And then I forgot that it was still on the chair. And we have seating charts. So the teacher knew, and she, like, brought it up to me the next day, but, like, non-discreetly, like, in front of the class. And she was like, did something happen yesterday? And I just, like,
froze and is like in the class with a cute guy's back in front of me, and I was just like, yeah, I guess I didn't come back. And she was like, yeah, you didn't. Like, the whole class didn't really know what was going on, but it was just so awkward and so terrible, and I thought I'd gotten out of it, but I didn't.
So why do you think you felt all that shame and embarrassment?
I guess just the stigma behind it, like, it's a gross thing, which it's not. It's like, now I know, like, if I did that, I'd be like, oh, sorry, like, gotta go to the bathroom.
My mom saw it as a dirty thing.
Whoa.
Yeah, like...
Whoa. So because she thought it was dirty, she didn't want you to be educated on what was inevitably gonna happen to your body.
Pretty much. She, used to tell me stories, because she was, like, a 50s baby. And she used to tell me stories about how, like, her family ran this store, and when, like, it was, like, the women's, like, period time, they would come to the store, and they wouldn't talk to my grandfather, they'd talk to her, they'd pull her aside and whisper in her ear, and she'd go, oh, okay, and she'd run behind the counter, get a brown paper bag of, like, pads, and, like, sneak it to them like it was contraband. Like, that's...
Oh my god. That's
Yeah.
some real shit!
There's so much. When she got hers, like, her dad beat her. Because that, like, meant she could get pregnant. So, like, that, and those are the stories she told me. So by the time I got mine, I was like, oh no, it's a terrible thing.
I think because, I mean, I guess I wasn't that young. I'm still really young. But because it was my first time, I didn't know how to deal with it. And just how it's talked about, it's not an open thing, really. It's like, you have to hide it. So for it to not be hidden and it just out in the open, I was, like, panicking that people were going to know. And I think that's why it was so traumatizing.
I was always like, oh my goodness, I don't want people to know this thing about me or that this is happening. And it was embarrassing and shame. Like, I don't know, like, people weren't supposed to know that it was going on. But then I reached an age where, like, people were like, oh yeah, no bathroom breaks until this time or that time. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm on my period, and unless you want me to ruin your seat, I'm out. Like, I'll take a tampon out of my bag, walk out of the room with it. Now, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's something my body does. And if I don't handle it, like, that's not good for anybody. Like, there's zero shame in it now.
So, are you able to identify at all, like, when that change happened from, like, I should be ashamed to whatever, fuck you, I need to take care of my business?
I moved to Los Angeles around, like, 21. And at that point, I was out of, like, the oppressive southeastern part of the U.S. And I was living here in a more free place. And I was more free to be myself. And I am boisterous and out there and happy to be me. And I've embraced that more. And as that growth in myself has happened, I feel like I've embraced every part of me, including the bleeding that comes out of my vagina every 25 days.
Do you still feel like it is bad or shameful?
God, no. Like, if
Good.
I didn't have it, I'd be fucking pregnant. Like, and there's no shame in being pregnant either, but, like, I don't want to be.
And then can you talk a little bit about, like the hiding of, like, tampons and pads and, like, going about that whole thing?
Yeah. So I only had my period for like 2 or 3 months when I was 16, so while I was still in school. But I do remember, like, trying to hide tampons and stuff when I would have to leave class. And I would wear this, like, huge sweatshirt from my school, like my school sweatshirt, like, because I was a tomboy and I liked it big and baggy or whatever. And I would keep a tampon in my sleeve and just, like, kind of hold it there. And then, like, walk to the bathroom or whatever, because, I don't know, I thought that was sneaky, but I'm sure everyone knew.
And then why did you feel the need to sneak it?
I don't know. I think, I honestly don't know. I guess I probably didn't want to draw attention to the fact that I was a girl. Like, I think I had made myself believe that I had done a good job convincing people that I wasn't girly, and this was, like, the last, like, way to make sure people knew that I wasn't a girl, because I hadn't had my period yet. So I just would, like, hide it and be like, no, I'm gonna go, like, hang out in the bathroom and smoke a cigarette or something.
Right, yeah. Totes, 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 totes.
I told my mom, like, Mom, if you need to refer to pads, I didn't use tampons. I still don't use them. I don't know how to use them. I don't like them. I feel uncomfortable. Anyway, I used to tell my mom, like, call them cookies. So we were going to the store, and in front of my sister, she was going to say, like, Diana, remember, you need to buy cookies. I remember we went to the supermarket with my dad and my sister, and my dad knew it, like, but I didn't know that he knew about it. So he said, hey, if you need, just take what you need, you know, pads or something. I was like, tampons? Pads? What are you talking about? I have no idea what those are. Oh my, for in my mind, it's like if he were asking me today, do you have sex? Sex? What? I don't know what sex is. My sister, she was laughing at me, and she was like, Dad, whenever I get my period, I will just let you know.
I always thought it was, like, really weird and stupid and unnecessary that women had to, like, hide the fact, that we use tampons and pads, etc. when we need to go to the bathroom. And, like for me, like, I've hid it in my bra. I've hid it in, like, the waist of my pants, you know, like, in the sleeve of your shirt, etc. I think I even put one, like, in my armpit once to, like, go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh, this'll work. Do. Like, just, like, the weird shit we do. So, like, no one knows we have a period. It's, like, it's cool. It's fine. So, like, a lot of times, like, I use a Diva cup now, so it's, like, a completely different experience. I have, like, a cool little silicone cup, and it's in, like, a cute little drawstring bag, and anytime I need to, like, go to the bathroom during my period to take care of it, it's already inside of me, so then I can just, like, take it out, dump it, rinse it, put it back in, so I don't have to, like, carry supplies with me all the time. So I love it for that reason. It's eco-friendly, amongst, like, other things. They're phenomenal. I'm a big fan. So, yeah, like, of course I have felt like, oh, the polite, ladylike thing to do is to hide it and to conceal the supplies. But, like, fuck that. You know what I mean? And so where do you think the idea that we have to hide it comes from?
I really don't know, because, like, if somebody cuts their leg, people, like, rush to go help them, and it's the same blood. But I guess because it's coming out of your vagina, I don't know. Like, it's literally a natural thing. You just bleed because you're not pregnant.
So where do you think that shame comes from?
Men. Men, and then women under men.
So I really don't know where the negativity of it comes from.
And even in the Bible, like, they say during that time women are unclean. It could come from that.
Do you think sexism plays a part?
Yeah, I mean, because guys talk about, like, jacking off, and it's, like, still a bodily fluid that comes out of your genitals. So I guess, yeah, like, women are supposed... I don't know. Women are supposed to deal with their shit and not, like, involve others with their problem type of thing, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think if men had periods in the way that we do, it would be talked about differently?
Probably people would be more out in the open about it. It wouldn't be so taboo, I guess.
And then why, if it's coming from a man, would the taboo disappear? That making it taboo kind of go away?
I don't know, men just, like, normalize shit. Like, I had a conversation with my friend yesterday, and it was just, like, he was telling a story the first time he ever jacked off was, like, with his neighbor, and they were both in the same bed, and I was like, what? Like, that doesn't happen with girls. Like, I mean, maybe it does, I don't know, it never happened with me, but I think men just think that whatever they do is okay, so when if it happened to them, it'd be like, oh, that's what it is, like, we're just gonna, here it is.
So you said men.
Men, yeah.
And then women kind of, like, perpetrating that or, like, continuing that because of the men leading that conversation. So, okay. I think there could be some interesting things there, like some of the reasons maybe men even like getting angry, or like your dad or your grandpa like beating your mom and stuff like that when she got it. Like, I think part of it, and this is a Middle Eastern culture too, they do this, like they'll like slap you or hit you when you get your period because they're like, don't bring shame on this family and get pregnant.
Oh, that part.
Yeah. I think like when the men close to you get upset about it, it's like they're also acknowledging like their sense of responsibility of like, well, if I keep sexually abusing, this is like a far out idea, right? Like, I'm not saying this is always happening, but I'm saying a possibility could be like, if I keep sexually abusing her, if I keep raping her, now people are gonna know. And I wonder if that might be part of it. Because essentially your body is saying as soon as you're menstruating, you're technically ready to bear child. Like, you're ready to be a mother.
Physically, emotionally, not so much.
Yeah, emotionally not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's the reason life exists. You know, it's so important, and that's what's really annoying, is that it's so important. And just because there is blood involved, and just because there is a vagina involved, somehow, and I don't want to like wash this all on men, but somehow I will say the 1%, like white men, have made this something to be ashamed of, and that is redonkulous. Like, absolutely crazy to me.
If men had periods, there would be so many period jokes. There'd be t-shirts talking about periods. There'd be movies where guys would just be walking around bleeding and like their guy friends would laugh about it and it'd be the funniest thing. It would be farts. Just map periods over farts, and that's how it would be.
Sexism, I think, plays a huge role in the way that periods are talked about by men and women. I think that the stigma of the period kind of shames women out of talking about it openly and being able to like truly express how they're feeling. They kind of just like reside themselves to, oh yeah, I have PMS, I'm being a bitch, instead of like maybe even, you know, looking at their partner and being like, no, I'm in pain, like I need you to give me some slack. You know, it's a physiological situation, it's nothing that you really have control over. I think it's an easy out for women to kind of just be like, oh yeah, it's PMS or whatever. And same with men. I think that that men use what little they know about menstruation as a way to belittle the female experience. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if a woman is being assertive or emotional or whatever it is, you know, it's a very easy pile to put her in. It's like, oh, she's just PMSing or like whatever. I think that's the main thing that I've experienced sexism-wise, is like the just freely using the term PMS as a way to explain somebody's like mood or whatever.
So my experience with men in response to my period has actually been relatively positive.
Can we talk about men as allies?
Yes. Men as allies. I think there are, you know, for the most part, men do get a bad rap. I think there are a lot of men allies. I think that it's tough because, I mean, I come from this way too. It's like when, like, I'm a feminist, so when I talk about feminist issues, sometimes I come off a little too fire instead of just like being open and like having a easy conversation with people. So I think it scares men off to like bring up questions or to bring up concerns with stuff that have to do with with feminism and feminine power and all of that stuff, or even just simple questions like, what is a period? Because, you know, I maybe would jump down someone's throat a little bit. I'm trying to reel back on that. So I have been so blessed. I am surrounded by so many men who are interested in the woman experience, and yeah, my best friend is a guy, and he he used to be pretty grossed out by like periods and stuff, and I have been incredibly open with him, and he's been super open, and he's asked a lot of questions. And one day we worked together in a small office, and so I had gone to the bathroom, and I was like, damn it, Ashley, that's his name, he's a boy, I need a tampon. And so he like ran a tampon into me, and I was using OB at that point, which is a tampon without an applicator. It's just the cotton thing that you shove up your vagina. So he immediately had a question. He's like, what is this? And so I was explaining it to him, and then I was going to put it in, and I was like, do you just want to like see how this works? And he's like, yeah. So, I mean, I wish he was here, but I like basically just like threw my leg up on the toilet and like showed him how to put it in and explained to him where it was going and what was happening in my body and all of this stuff. And it was a really cool experience to share with him. I shall say also that he and I are very close. We know everything about each other, so this wasn't just like a coworker being like, hey, how do you put a tampon in? It was like, he's my best friend. And yeah, that was a really cool experience for me because it really like drove home the fact that there are men who are just interested in what's going on and how everything works. Maybe they're just a little afraid to ask.
I have been lucky that every guy that I have come in contact with, like dating wise anyway, they've all been supportive. I've never had a guy go, ew, your period. Like I've been in the general facility like area of men who were like, oh yeah, you must be on your period today, or oh, like something to that effect. And like those guys are assholes, and there's probably a reason I'm not dating them. But like guys that I know and that I am close to, like they get it, and they've like had sisters, had mothers who like it's not as taboo to them as. So I'm grateful that I've not been around a lot of assholes.
My husband has been very supportive and helpful as far as making sure that I feel like I have enough supplies on hand and that everything is comfortable for me, and he's okay with the general idea of me having a period, but he doesn't like to have sex while I'm on my period, and he doesn't want it to make a mess on anything, and he is very like no nonsense on those 2 points.
Have you experienced men being allies? Like and being like really sensitive and helpful when you're dealing with it?
I have only dealt with that in the current person that I'm dating. So he's in the medical field, actually Chinese herbal field, so not Western medicine. So he has a different approach and understanding to, a little bit more of a sensitivity to it, of course, because he understands that, this isn't just a 3-day endeavor. It's the weeks leading up to it. It's all the symptoms and things that you go through prior, not necessarily after, because Jesus, once it's done, you're like, whew, we're done with that for at least 4 days until something else starts up. But the whole like pre-menstrual cycle, then you start going through it all again.
Do you feel as though you're always prepared with like pads or tampons when it's time for your period?
I like 90% of the time.
No, I'm really bad at it. I'm that person that's like panicking to get one.
Is it something where you're like, oh yeah, at this age now I completely have it under control?
The short story is no.
I still find myself not fully prepared.
I have like a cute little like treasure chest above my toilet with all my like things in it. And there have been times where I'm like run into the treasure chest. I'm like, oh fuck, it's empty. So then I go through every single purse that I have.
But I've gotten better at it. But I've only gotten better at it because I use a Diva cup. So it's literally a matter of like, oh, I'm cramping. Oh, I'm really sad and horny and like depressed right now. I'm probably getting my period soon. So then like I'll make sure I grab my Diva cup.
But I kind of think I'm like that because mine's also really irregular. Like, sometimes it'll come 2 months in between or 2 weeks in between. Like, it doesn't have a thing, so.
Every single month, each and every single one, I never know when my period's gonna start.
I mean, I should carry tampons on me at all times, but if it were to happen, like, and I'm not prepared for it and no one has a tampon, like, I can get away with, like, putting toilet paper until I can get one. So it's not like, I don't know. I think, honestly, like, the first time I ever got my period, I just bled everything out, and like now I'm just like a really light flower from now on.
It used to be 28 days apart exactly, and then all of a sudden it started coming 2 days early every single month. 2 days earlier than it was supposed to.
Luckily, I'm not someone who usually spots too much. It's kind of like no period, tsunami of misery, and then nothing. So I guess I'm lucky with a full 7-day nightmare period.
So I'm never prepared for it. I can always tell that I'm getting close, but I have no idea what day it's going to hit. I don't know if it's going to start while I'm at work or while I'm out with friends or while I'm in the middle of a school function with my son. I've gotten to the point where I have a stash in my car so that I have something wherever I need it.
Do you find yourself still having period mishaps and bleeding on things, or do you think you handle it perfectly like a lady now every time?
Like a lady. I had mishaps like a lady.
There was one day when I needed to take my son to school, and I was running out of gas. I woke up late. I was in mid-flow, high point, and I had my tampon in from the night before and the pad from the night before, and had to run out the door, get my son to school, and when I went to drive away from school to go home, my car had just run out of gas.
I have bed mishaps. I'm like, oh, I'm not as heavy as I think I am. I'll be fine. And I'll wake up and I'm like, okay, well, these shorts are ruined.
And I was in a skirt with no bra. And I was going down Sepulveda Boulevard, pushing my car and trying to get it over to the side of the road and just going, oh, this couldn't get much worse. So it got worse. I also had no cash with me and no credit card. The only thing I had was my Unical card. And so I had to try and get to a gas station. I had to call Lyft and have them pick me up and take me to the gas station. When I got there, they didn't have gas canisters. So then we had to drive to another gas station. The whole time I was panicked that I was bleeding through onto this guy's seat, and I was just I was sitting sideways, and it was trying desperately to not embarrass myself any more than I had already done. And we finally got to another gas station, got the gas canister, got it back, and he dropped me off, and I went to fill it up, and I didn't know how to use the gas canister. There was a locking mechanism and everything. So a bunch of guys, construction workers from across the street came over, and the whole time I'm I can feel blood now dripping down my leg, and they're surrounding me trying to figure out this gas canister to get the gas into my car. But they ended up getting the gas into my car. Then they said, we're really not sure if it's the gas, because my car was still sputtering. They're like, we're going to follow you over to your mechanic and make sure you get there safe so that they can check out your car. So then I had to wait at the mechanic with all these construction workers following me. And in the end, it was just the gas. They put more gas in, and it was fine. But then I had to drive home and figure out what had happened with my body and clean up, and so that was a fun one.
My last period about a month ago was my first experience being mortified of a period incident. What happened to me was I have a couple jobs, and one of my day jobs is I assist an artist. And so him and I are pretty close. We hang out at his place all the time. I was hanging out at his apartment. He was painting in the room next to me, and I was laying on his off-white couch watching a film. Zach and Miri make a porno. His daughter comes home from school. She's 14, so she's over there painting in his little studio. He's painting in a different room, and I'm on the couch watching this movie, chilling, because I just worked all day. And then I'm like, can I make it through the movie without getting up? There's a point when I'm laying down when I feel it. And I'm like, there it goes. There it goes. But I was like laying on my back. And I was like, well, maybe it didn't. You know, maybe I was wearing like this jumpsuit. Because jumpsuits are dope. It's black. I mostly wear black. And I finally decided, okay, I need to get up and assess the damage. And I got up. And, of course, I got blood on his couch. And I was like, all right, how do we hide this? Every now and then also, for some reason, my period in the past, like, about year has had, not all the time, but sometimes has, like, this really intense, awful smell to it. So not only did I get period blood on his couch, on his white couch, I also, like, it just reeked. And it was just like this awful smell that's not really identifiable, but you just knew it was probably something related to that, and it was just gross. So I like try to get some napkins and like blot it, and I was like, that's not gonna do anything. And I was like, okay, I really need to go to the bathroom because I'm making this worse because I'm bleeding everywhere right now. So then I just like put a pillow on it and then hoped he wouldn't come out of the room. And then I went to the bathroom, took care of that, came back out, was like, okay, how do I do this without anybody knowing what's going on, without embarrassing myself in front of my boss slash homie slash guy I think I may or may not like. So stupid. So then I was just like too embarrassed to tell him, but like he probably would have been like, whatever. But I was like, I can probably get away with just dealing with it and hiding it. I don't know. So like long story short, like I rush and I like get a black towel from the kitchen and like I wet it and put some soap on it and try to like rub it out, and then ended up just being like a big pink blob, and it still smelled a little weird. And then I was like, okay, this is the best it's gonna get without me like taking this cushion home. So I put like 2 pillows on it and I was like, okay, as long as nobody moves these pillows before this dries, I might be okay. That's not what happened. So I decided, I was like, all right, it's time for me to go. Like at the time I was like, this is the plan. I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to put pillows on it. It's going to dry and I'm just going to get the fuck out of here. So I like, you know, start doing really nice things. Like I clean up his place real quick. I like take out his trash. So I was like, oh, don't worry, you don't have to do that. I was like, oh no, it's fine, no problem. Yeah. Like, so he's just like thanking me on my way out. But then he's also like, what is that smell? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh. And he like opens the front door for air. He opens all the doors. He opens all the windows. He turns on the air conditioning. He lights all of his candles. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. It's not crazy. Anyway, so I'm going to go. Like, he's like, you don't take my trash. I'm like, no, please. It's fine. So like I take his trash and I get the fuck out of there. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I don't even make it to the freeway. The freeway's about a mile from his place. And I get a call and I'm like, oh, shit. And I answer the phone. He's like, hey, Amy, why is there a wet spot on the couch? And I was like, oh, yeah, I meant to tell you I spilled something, but I cleaned it up, like, no worries. It's just drying. He's like, you spilled something? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what did you spill? And I was like, a drink. He's like, you spilled a drink? I was like, yeah. And he's like, it doesn't smell like a drink. And I was like, oh, I was like, what does it smell like? Because then now I'm just like, I just like want him to fucking say it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was like, we both know what happened here and I want you just to say it. And I was like, I'm not going to say it. So I was like, what does it smell like? And he's like, it smells like it came from somebody's body. I was like, oh, I was like, you know what? Maybe I was just trying to save face. Like, obviously we both know what it is. I'm sorry. I tried to clean it up. He's like, Amy, that's so fucked up. You just bleed all over my couch and bone out. And he's yelling at me. I'm just like, fuck. And I'm so embarrassed. So embarrassed. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm awful. Fire me, whatever. Like, just put on a hazmat suit and, like, put the pillow in a bag and, like, throw it outside and I'll come pick it up in the morning and, like, I'll wash it and whatever. I'll wash your whole couch, like, whatever. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm awful. I know. Okay, bye. And, like, it just, like, hung up and I was like, I can't. I'm embarrassed. This is awful. And it's so weird because I'm not someone who gets embarrassed and I'm someone who's bled on everything under the sun. So I'm like, why this time? Later that night, he texts me and he apologizes and he's like, you know, you should have told me, I would have understood, and I know he has daughters and this and that, and I'm sure he would have, but I just was like, maybe I can hide it. But, like, getting yelled at for, like, getting blood on something doesn't fucking feel good. And I was like, I never want anyone to feel that again. You know, he apologized and whatever. He thought I handled it shittily. I thought I did my best, and it's a difference of opinion, and that's fine, but he apologized and that's great. Yeah, I was like, fuck, like, I've never had something like that happen yet. Like I said, I've bled on everything, but, like, no one's ever, like, called me out and, like, made me feel like that for it. And that shit doesn't feel good. It feels like getting in trouble for being a human, getting in trouble for being a woman, getting in trouble for doing something normal and natural, and not everyone, but, like, you know, more than half the population goes through, and it's like, I'm sure it'd be very hard to find a man who hasn't had a female in his life at some point, and we're all aware of menstruation, yet I was so embarrassed to even say it and talk about it, and that's crazy. And that's, like, a bigger societal issue of, like, I'm like, oh no, I have to hide it. Like, I'd even want his daughter to know, but I knew she was menstruating. Like, it was just so weird. And it's like, why? My whole thing is, like, the why.
So at the time I'm working in a restaurant and I'm moving around very quickly. I remember it was hot that day, so I won't be able to feel this. That morning I'm feeling pretty crappy. But who doesn't on their period? So I go to work and I take me some Midol. And I'm on the bus and I think I feel a little bit of hint of a something. Which to me says you're cramping so terribly bad that now the medication's use has worn off and it's starting to come over now into, well, now you're going to feel it a little bit. So that means I'm, like, cramping extra hard. When I start to realize this, I realize, oh my goodness, I am probably bleeding like crazy. And I realized this about the time I'm walking off of the bus. So I've been sitting for a significant amount of time. You know, I got headphones in. And feeling high on that Midol. So then I get off the bus, and that's about the time I kind of feel my pants in between my legs. And I was like, that can't be good. I don't think that's a good thing. And I walk into my work. I immediately go into the bathroom, which is a lovely all-white, bright bathroom with the most amazing lighting in the world. So I can see anything and everything that could possibly happen. Now, as a server in Beverly Hills, I'm meant to wear all black clothes. So I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm a little bit on the safe side. So I pull my pants down, I go to the bathroom, and sure enough, it's worse than I thought it was. My thong is just obliterated, gone. We might as well just take that off, throw it in the trash. There's no point in that thing being there anymore. I, of course, take my tampon out, which, you know, seemed like it was a Q-tip inside of me at that point. And that's when I looked down to my actual jeans that were completely covered on the insides of my thighs and were making their way down to my knees. You could barely see this except for the fact that my jeans were a little worn by this point. So you have, like, the little bit of the fabric that has rubbed together and turned white on the inside of your legs, which then managed to completely stain red. So if you were to look from behind my butt, you would definitely have seen a whole bunch of red just stained. And I was like, first of all, as a server, I'm like, there's no way that I'm allowed to walk through a restaurant. If I'm supposed to wash my hands after I go to the bathroom, I cannot be walking around with menstrual blood just, in plain sight hiding all over me. So then I realized, well, you can definitely see it too, because my boss and I, we tend to butt heads a little bit, and he's hard-headed, I'm hard-headed, but we're both right. At least that's what I tell myself. So, and he's French, so we would always just kind of hit. And I walk out, and I was like, hey, and I grab his attention, I'm like, come here, we need to talk really quick, and already he's like, what, kind of like, hurry it along, I got things to do. And I just, in the most possible way that I could do it without alarming or, like, sounding frantic, because I was starting to panic a little bit here, not to mention, like, emotions are flying because I'm on my period. So, I pull him aside and I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I don't have a change of clothes, but I am bleeding all the way through my pants. I was like, I have bled all the way through my pants. And the look on his face, he goes from this hard ass boss to just melting. And he was like, go home. Go home. And he just like didn't even know what to say to me. All he could get out was just go home, clock out, don't even worry about it. And I swear I probably had to look like some poor little kid who just spilled their ice cream to look on my face, because I was just like helpless. I didn't know what to do. The helpless feeling that it created, knowing that I wasn't anywhere near my house, that I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't replace anything that was on me. I just had to deal with this, and I had to deal with the fact that my pants were, I don't even know how much amount of blood was chilling there, but it took me, I remember, 30 minutes down in the bathroom to like wipe myself and clean and at least like soak up as much blood as I could with toilet paper and get it as dry as it could possibly get before I could get back on the bus and go home.
Have you ever not gone to school or missed out on like an activity or like an event, like an important event or something you really wanted to go to because of your period?
I won't take work or jobs where I can't like get up and go to the bathroom when I want to during that time, because I'm like, I never know what could happen.
Trying to schedule everything in my life around when I am going to have the energy because I know that I have 1 week out of the month where I am going to be exhausted and hungry and moody and everything else, and I know that inevitably that is the week when everything else is going to be scheduled.
Because of cramps, I've missed things. Not feeling like I could wear the outfit that I wanted to wear. I was at Coachella, and I'm like, I don't know the fucking bathroom situation here.
And then I have the following week where I am going to be bleeding and angry about that, and there's a whole other thing. So I have to plan everything in my life around how my period is going to impact my mood and my stamina and my ability to focus mentally and physically and keep up with the pace of things.
And that sounds exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Sex, I guess. I miss out on sex. Like if I'm at a bar and I'm on my period, sorry mom, and I'm just like, oh, can't, gotta go home. Because I'm not about that. Like hint at it so they know like you're still interested. It's just like I'm currently bleeding and don't want to bleed on your dick, so gotta go home.
Right, but then there's that whole thing of then they're like, no, it's fine, like whatever.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I don't want that because I'm gonna have to clean it up, and it's so annoying to get out of everything, and it's just, it gets everywhere, blood gets everywhere.
Don't you find it interesting, though, that, like, men are so grossed out by periods, but then the second it's the difference between them having sex with you
or not, yeah, then it's okay. It's like, what? Like,
I've had boyfriends in the past who, I had a guy who would eat me out while I was on my period, and I was like, go for it, but, I wouldn't even do that.
So it's interesting, like, all of us, like, we have these stories and experiences where, like, we bled through something, we're in a situation, we miss out on an event, we miss out on work, we miss out on school, our fucking education.
Yes.
Sometimes our paid education, because of something that happens to more than half the population. Because of this very natural, normal thing. Why are we not better prepared as a society? Do you think, like, why why don't we have accommodations in school, in the workplace, etc., and where it doesn't have to be this mortifying thing of like, oh my god, like there shouldn't be embarrassment, right? Like it should, like, maybe, you know, like what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree. It is made to seem in society that whenever women do get their periods, that it's an inconvenience. That whatever you're going through, you need to tuck that deep down inside. You know, kind of that whole mentality that's brought to it is like, leave your business at the door. When you come into work, it's work. It's like, it's my body. There's nothing I can do about this, you know? This is going to happen every month until either somebody yanks out my uterus and all the parts, or I'm too old and, you know, that whole baby making thing decides to jump ship anyway. So until that point, there are no accommodations. I had a friend try and call out to work one time because her period, she was going through terrible periods to the point where she couldn't walk, and it's just made to seem like you're whining, or, you know, like, get over it or something like that.
Do you ever feel judged by women who have a heavier flow than you? Like they're like, oh, that bitch.
Yeah, but I don't think it's from like malice.
I feel like I am very lucky because I always had like a regular period and like no pain at all. Perfect period life, let's say.
Do you feel like you've been judged by other women for having like a quote easy period?
I never had any judgment from anybody, at least not yet. I don't know, maybe because I don't even like talk much about that with my friends, but so far so good.
I don't feel judged by women who have a lighter flow. I just don't feel understood by them either.
Did find for a long time that I couldn't go to women gynecologists because they would often, I ran into like some shame that was thrown my way, that I would be blamed for the reason that my periods were the way they were, or that the difficulty in reproduction that I had experienced was my fault, which was odd coming from a woman.
I don't know if you've ever used a Diva cup, but I fill one of those every day of my period. You're supposed to fill the equivalent of one over the course of your period. So it's very difficult for them to understand what I'm going through logistically when I have my period. It's also difficult for them to understand what my body is going through in preparation for it, and the amount of nutrients that my body ends up using in trying to build up for, I guess, conception and everything that leads up to it. And then when it's actually menstruating and coming out of me, how much I'm losing of really vital nutrients.
I was somewhere once and we were all just becoming evil bitches. And I was like, yeah, girl, my period's about to start. She's like, oh, me too. And then it was like the whole squad of us all like cycling together working this event. And like, we were like, yeah. One girl had like a 7-day crazy one. One girl's like, yeah, it's super late. I think she was on some type of birth control. I'm not on birth control, so I don't know that luxury. But like, everybody has something different going. And there was no judgment. It's everybody's body and like what it does. I wish somebody would try to judge me for the flow of my fucking period. What the fuck?
Have you ever felt like a sense of like sisterhood in regards to like a period accident? So like the first time it happened to you, like the homies came through and hooked it up.
Yeah, it was really refreshing to know that like my friends were there and knew what to do and just like took care of me, and like even though I was still freaking out, but they like made it, they neutralized it. Like I think my whole life would have ended. Well, 17-year-old me thought my whole life would have ended if they weren't there.
I will say also, I realized this when my little cousins got their periods, because I didn't have mine because of the medication I was on. When my first little cousin got hers, we were so close, me and my little ones. And when she got her period, I immediately felt like I had nothing in common with her anymore. It was so weird. And this is just coming to me because I just talked about them earlier. But it was so weird. I was like, well, now I have nothing. I can't give you advice about cramps or like period headaches or like PMS. I have no idea what you're going through. I'm sorry. And then when my second little baby cousin, who's not a baby anymore, got her period, it was like even more hard hitting because she's my mini me. So like watching her go through this, I was like, what the fuck? I have no idea what's happening. And then of course when I got my period when I was 28, I was like, I acted like a teenager. I was like, oh, this hurts. Ouch. It was really funny. So I think I separated myself from my female friends because I felt like I didn't have anything in common with them. I don't know if I thought of that or if it was subconscious, but, you know, I look back and I can see that happening when I was in high school.
I guess I always felt a little isolated from it, given how I first had my first period and kind of the reproductive problems that I've had over my life. It's never really been I've never had a normal period, really. I've never really had a normal reproductive cycle. Like, none of that has been an easy go for me. Not that it's easy for anybody, but it's never been a normal routine in any way. It's always been something that I've battled, and I've had a lot of reproductive mishealth over the years. So anytime that I do share it with somebody, I'm usually met with jaw down to the floor going, why did you have to go through that? I'm like, well, I don't know. So I haven't really found a sisterhood with it necessarily. It's always, oh, that's not how mine is. You know?
Yeah, talking about the, you know, bond with other women, you know, it's hard. I even, you know, having my period, it's hard to bond with women. And I think that's a whole other social issue where people pin women against each other, especially if you're smart and successful. Immediately, now you're an enemy with every other smart and successful woman. So I will say, like, growing up and when you first get your period, like, maybe let that be the thing that brings you together with a girl in your class or in your school that you wouldn't necessarily think you could be friends with.
And can I also just say, Amanda and I are both very smart, strong, successful women, and we love each other and use it to our benefit. Because if you're smart, that's what you fucking do.
That's right. That is right. I mean, God, women are your, like, huge allies. They talk about, like, I mean, it's just such a unique experience that we all go through.
I feel like women have definitely stepped up to the plate as far as creating camaraderie around periods. It's that sort of, you know, I've been there, I understand, I want to save you from my pain, that I think has built a culture, we've built a culture around it that's sort of unspoken. You know, if you need something, you can signal and somebody will help you find a solution.
So you touched on this a little bit, but have you ever felt a sense of, like, sisterhood in regard to your period? Like, or if there was, like, a period accident or you were lacking supplies, like, somebody came in and stepped up?
I feel like when you're on your period, or if somebody comes and asks you, like, oh man, I just started, like, do you have a tampon? It's like, that's like the 911. Like, every woman on the planet will step up. You can step to a stranger and be like, do you have something? You're like, honey, hold on. You're instant family. That's just, because we've all been there in some way, shape, or form.
I would probably go find a paper towel, wad it up, put it inside me, and hand her my tampon.
I always am so confused when I see women, and I've seen this a few times, women who are walking down the street or at a restaurant or whatever, who have, like, period blood on their pants somewhere, or someone who needs a tampon in a bathroom, and, like, women are just sitting there silently, like, not saying anything. It's like, dude, like, come on, like, it's inevitable, and you're gonna be the one who's gonna need it next time, so, like, just show up for each other.
So the whole idea of if a homie needs a tampon, and by homie, I just generally mean any female menstruating person that needs a tampon, and I have one, no matter how big of a cunt she is, like, I'll probably give it to her. One, because I'm a really good person, and two, just, like, so fucked up if you don't. Like, I personally think there's, like, kind of like an unwritten rule, like, unwritten girl code, that it's like, okay, yeah, maybe you guys fought over some bullshit over here, but like if she needs a tampon, like you know what that's like to be sitting in your own blood and it's awful. So I'm not going to make her do it. And women have been scientifically proven to be more empathetic. I don't know if that's true, but women are more empathetic because we carry babies and it's like within us, within our chemistry to care more. So, because we have to make sure our babies don't die. That's what our bodies are built for. So yeah, I would do that for sure.
I have this like rule now because like living in LA, like you see women on the streets and they, just because they're on the street doesn't mean they stop menstruating. So it's like if I buy a new box of tampons, I will leave some in the bathroom of like any place I go to next. And I'll also like give some to any woman I see on the street walking home. I might end up getting home with like 5 tampons, but I'm just like, you just don't know. I saw a woman once in like McDonald's or Starbucks and she was off it. Like she was gone. And she like walked into like the bathroom, or not the bathroom, like it was like Starbucks, just walked over, grabbed some napkins and just like shoved them in her pants. And I was like, fuck. Like, this is the reality of her situation. And if this were someplace like, I don't know, if there's not a place she can just walk into. Like you can walk into thrift stores and get condoms. You can't walk into a thrift store anywhere and just like grab some tampons. There's no place you can just walk to and like grab a handful of something and you're encouraged.
So do you think tampons and pads would be free if it was men who were menstruating?
Yeah, condoms are free. There'd be tampon awareness. I'm just imagining a box of tampons looking all masculine, printed like gunmetal and shit.
So do you think it's fair to say that sexism plays a part in like the accessibility of supplies and just the stigma around it?
Oh, for sure. If it weren't a woman thing, like the female care industry, the cosmetic industry, like things, women are told we need tampons. We're told we need things, and then they're marked up an absurd degree. Like that's just how it is, because we're like, okay, to be beautiful, we need to wear this and we need to do that. And then those things are priced through the roof and we like spend bazillions of dollars a year trying to attain such image. It's like the same with our periods and like the things that we use. Like, oh yeah, well we can't just not buy tampons. Or like, and the cup, for instance, that thing's like $50. So you're taking a chance buying it, and then it might not fit in your square-shaped vagina. And there you are out of $50, and you can't just give it to your cousin.
I think if men had periods, menstrual supplies would be so fucking accessible. I think that tampons would be sold next to fucking candy bars and vending machines. You'd find them everywhere. Like, I can't even remember the last time I went into a restroom and they even had like a tampon pad dispenser. Like, when you find one of those, you're like, what? They have these? Who the fuck is a quarter? Nobody has quarters. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. And then it's always like, you know, asking a stranger, which is uncomfortable and awkward, and you're like talking to someone under the stall. There's so much shit we have to fucking deal with. Like, life is hard enough, and then it's like all that other stuff. But yeah, I think sexism plays like a huge part as to why we don't talk about periods as openly, because men are like, ew, they're gross, I don't want to. And like, just act like, and anytime like I say something about my period in front of a guy who has like this like reaction of like disgust, or they're uncomfortable, or even like another woman who's usually older being like, oh, Amy, come on. And I'm like, no, fuck this. Like, so many of us have to deal with this. Like, they want to have sex with us. They want to like have us in their lives. They can know about some shit we're going through.
I think sexism does play a part in it for sure, but I also think it's ignorance that plays a big part of it. So I think that the ignorance is what spawns the creation of the sexism, of having that prejudice against it, because ultimately it's, I feel, on a lot, I'll go ahead and say men's part, because they don't have vaginas, that they aren't as educated.
I think if it were men that had periods, they'd be talking about it all the time, and it would just be like, women are expected to deal with it.
Why is there taxing on tampons and feminine products? Why should I be taxed for something that I cannot control? I mean, I am more than willing to come sit in your car and bleed all over your car and have you pay for it. So down for that. If that's how we want to deal with that action, totally fine with that.
In an idealistic sense, yes, I think pads and tampons should be free. This is a necessity that we cannot control, but so is food, so is water, so is shelter. And yet we're charged up the fucking asshole for all of those things. And I think that's insane. So it doesn't surprise me that in our society, something that is literally a basic need for females is so expensive. I think a more realistic approach in our current American society, economic system, etc., would be, one, the whole fucking removing tax on it. Yeah, like, of course, like, duh. Like, why was it ever taxed in the fucking first place? So, like, that's insane. So it's not like, yeah, congratulations. It's like, no, what were you doing taxing it this whole time?
So while I was homeless, I was using pads and tampons, and there were times when I couldn't afford it.
What did you do when you couldn't afford it?
I'm trying to think. Sometimes I think that I just used whatever, like paper towels and toilet paper and rags and things like that, just, you know, kind of rolled up, and then I would rinse them out and hang them up in my tent and stuff like that, and then wait until the next time around and use them again.
Anyone who's making a profit off of menstrual supplies, I think that's fucked up. How did that feel to do that, opposed to being able to afford the kind of like more common items?
On the one hand, I mean, it does feel a little bit more eco-friendly, but that wasn't why I was doing it. It felt very laborious, and it felt embarrassing because it wasn't something that I wanted to publicize in either sense. I didn't really want people to be thinking about my period, and I didn't want to admit that I was so broke that I couldn't afford tampons.
Were there any resources for you when you were homeless to be able to get menstrual supplies?
The circumstances that I was in, I didn't really know what resources might be available to me, and I didn't reach out to find them. I was more focused on looking for work and trying to be presentable.
It's complicated, but at the very fucking least, like, don't have a huge, like, margin on the product. Like, it cost you what? Like, maybe, let's say it costs 60 cents to make, like, an average size of box of tampons, and then it costs us, what, like, $8? $12, whatever, depending on the applicator and the marketing and this and that and the other thing. So it's like, no, let's just, like, at least charge, like, a reasonable amount for a necessary supply. What would you tell your younger self now that you know what your first experience was? Like, what would you say to yourself that would have maybe helped prepare you
More.
Yeah.
I would have told younger me that it's okay even if you think it's not. And it does happen to, I mean, over half the population's female, so it happens to more than half of the world. And just kind of like, fuck whoever like gave you shit, like that teacher, even though she was a woman. That's what made it even worse. She should have been like, are you okay? Like, I saw something yesterday, like, pulled me aside or whatever. But I would just tell, I guess younger me that it's fine. It's okay. Don't freak out.
I would say to my younger self that it's okay. You don't need to make, like, I was trying not to make a drama about it, but inside I was making a drama about it. So I was just, chill. It's okay. It's okay. But still, I feel like I took my time to be, like, more open about my periods, and that's okay, because you don't need to just go for it. Like, if you're not ready, that's okay.
What would you tell your younger self to better prepare her emotionally or maybe physically for like her very first period. Like think back to like Allishia, who like young Allishia, who like wasn't even allowed to be informed, was told that like this thing that should have been a really beautiful, normal, natural thing was like horrible and she's horrible. Like, what would you say to your younger self or a similar young girl? Because you're not the last girl who's going to go through something like that.
Well, first off, it's not going to be every day consecutively for the rest of your life. That would be helpful. It's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. It's all uphill from here.
Uphill or downhill?
Uphill's the good one, right?
Uphill means it's going to be harder.
I just learned some shit.
Uphill's awful. You don't want to be uphill from here. It's all going to get so much worse.
Up is good. Okay, it's all downhill sounds terrible. I'll say it though. If that's like, is that like the normal thing? See, this is what happens when you don't get to go to period class. When you're not informed about your body, you don't know like normal colloquialisms.
Hey, but you know the word colloquialism, and that's a big one.
And that's because I read books. So it's all downhill from. That sounds so terrible.
You can say it's all up from here. I think that's what you want.
Baby period Allishia, 12 years old, the week of Halloween. You're not going trick-or-treating, but it's okay. There'll be plenty of chocolate right next to the tampon aisle at CVS in Hollywood when you live there. It's all gonna be fucking awesome.
One thing that we don't actually explain is we'll say you may spot or experience spotting in between periods. What is that? It is brown shit that comes out of your vagina. It is something that you are not expecting.
Would you let your daughter go, and your son if you had a daughter and a son, would you make sure they got to go to that class and be educated?
They would know everything before they even got to the class. My children would be able to teach the class.
Any advice I'd have for like my younger self or other young women, young girls who just got their period, are about to, are feeling like shame, embarrassment, etc. Know that like you don't have to be feeling those feelings, and that those are implemented by society, and those are not, there's no shame with having a period. There's no shame with like these experiences. It's just part of like what our body does. Like, I think it's as natural as like peeing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something we do. And because it's only women that experience it, we throw all this stigma on it, and we don't need to do that. So, my advice is to say, fuck it. There you go. What would you say to other girls who get their periods late or have irregular periods and do feel like that lack of sisterhood and femininity?
I will say, for the girls that get their periods late, cherish those years before you get it. There's nothing like, it's not like you're better or worse than a girl who already had her period. It's just, it's that time where you have one less thing to worry about in a world where like women have so much to worry about. So like really like cherish that time you have where you're not having to worry about periods and tampons and diva cups and everything.
I would definitely say to younger women going through anything similar to what I've experienced, or any type of reproductive abnormality, whether it be an abnormal period, abnormal pap smears, anything of gynecological related. If you feel it's not normal, or you're going through something and you feel you can't talk to somebody, because I know how hard it is to talk to a mother, if you have a mother there that you could possibly talk to, that's not always the case. You don't feel like you can. You always feel like it's happening to only you. It's definitely not. There are other people, and if you've gotten some sort of blowback from a doctor and you just seriously feel like it's not yourself, the wonderful thing now is we have the internet. So there are forums, there are support groups, there are things like this film being made. You know, there are different ways that people have started to reach out to really make sure that other people have a sense of community that are there for you. And a lot of times they're anonymous things that you can plug into, or blogs of women that, you know, are going through these things and encouraging other women, you know, to share their stories with them. And we have a little bit better of, maybe not an immediate community, I would say, but I'm not going to go so far as to say the community is not there. Because definitely when I started almost 16 years ago, the internet was not as big as a thing as it is now. Definitely not with, you know, the amount of support and social media that we have. So I would say don't be shy in reaching out, because sometimes it is a little easier to reach out to somebody that you don't know, that doesn't know you, and you feel isn't going to judge you, which they aren't. And a lot of times people aren't judging you. So being able to reach out to somebody like that, or if you do have an older woman in your life, albeit that be your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, somebody, or nobody, and it's just a best friend next door or something, and you do feel comfortable with, please talk to that person and get to a doctor. If you ever feel that something isn't right, my advice 100% is please go to a doctor and don't wait. Just tips, like if you're having rough periods, your diet is a big part of it as well. So eating a little bit cleaner during them. I've noticed that if I eat like crap the entire month, you know, I'm going out having beers, I'm slamming burgers and pizza and all those wonderful things, I have some pretty violent periods. So I've been experimenting in my diet and different things. My health has pushed me in that direction regardless. I didn't do it on my own. I was forced into it. But I've found that balancing those different types of things and really kind of paying attention to what your body is needing and wanting, you know, like hydration and all of those things are important, I feel, to pay attention to in conjunction with your gynecological health on its own. So I'm not just saying eat your vegetables and your vagina is going to be snazzy. I'm saying information and try and talk to somebody, as hard as that may be. And if you're watching this, find me on social media, and dear God, I'll help you, because nobody should ever feel like that they aren't able to talk to somebody about what's going on in their body and a natural thing that happens to you.
Yeah, I think like the more content we have about menstruating, about periods, about homeless women who don't even have those supplies, and I think the reason people are like, oh shit, yeah, I should donate tampons, I should donate pads, but we don't think about it, is because that conversation isn't open. So it affects all these different parts. Yeah, food and clothes, great, but holy fuck, they bleed every month. Holy fuck, that's a nightmare. I have a nightmare every month, and I have everything I need. So I think that conversation needs to be more open. I think it needs to be more honest. I think we need to not freak out. It's blood. Women's bodies are fucking magic. And if we stop being so scared of it, we can actually start benefiting from it.
Para todas las personas que saben lo que está pasando en Venezuela o que se sienten interesados por la situación y saben que no hay comida o que no hay medicinas o que estamos pasando por una situación bastante trágica, me gustaría también agarrar tu atención para que piensen un poco más en todas esas mujeres que, lamentándolo mucho, no consiguen algo tan sencillo como toallas sanitarias. A veces no se nos ocurre, no nos viene a la mente, pero debemos hablar de eso, y me gustaría pues colaborar para que todas esas personas, todas esas mujeres pues tengan todos los recursos para estar más cómodas. Gracias.
I will say that if you haven't done this, when you have your period, let it like drip out of your body into the toilet or into the bathtub when you're taking a shower, and it is the most remarkable thing. It's like when you're little and you look up at the clouds and you're like a bunny in roller skates. Now you can just like look into the toilet and be like, oh my god, like Mona Lisa. Your blood is beautiful.
I mean, I want to say thank you so much for doing this and talking about it and creating a space for this conversation. Thank you for listening to this, and thank you for hearing our stories, so that hopefully more people can experience this without fear and without shame and without guilt and without feeling like we're less than or we're weird or gross or anything negative, because what our bodies are doing is so fantastic, and it only gets more amazing as you go through life. And whether you have a child or you don't have a child, if you get to grow old in this body, like, that's freaking magical. And we do so many cool things at each level of existence. So good luck.
I hope that they share some part of this in schools, because there's so much stigma and so much embarrassment, shyness, shameness around having your period. And by the time you reach my age, God willing, you don't give a fuck. But then again, I also feel like girls these days, at least in the more progressive areas like where I live currently, aren't ashamed of much of anything. And we need to start empowering like girls to take ownership of their bodies and understand what's going on, so that it isn't such a weird and taboo thing to do something that your body does and every woman who came before you's body does. Also, take a shot of whiskey when you have cramps. It really fucking helps.
Vaginas are awesome, and take care of yours.
Perfect. Good.